This show is sponsored by the Comics Shop. We hope you enjoy the show.
All right, good evening and a welcome to Tuesday Chinwag. We are here, Bo and Ben, they're flooding in. All right, thank you for all the comments coming through. Well, tonight's obviously Tuesday Chinwag. My name's Leigh Chalker. I am the creator of the Australian independent comic book Battle for Bustle, published through ComX. Now, Tuesday Chinwag is simulcastly broadcast over 2 channels, and you can see both of their addresses along that little yellow ticker box running across the bottom of the screen. One is ComX. Now, ComX is split into 3 sections. There is the community, which brings like-minded people together from all aspects of the community to talk about the love of comics. The other one is the Comics Network, which produces shows like Chinwag, Friday Night Drink and Draw, Let's Make a Comic Book, the Oz Comics Show, and varying other shows that pop up. There is also the Comics Shop, which sponsors the show. That is the home of over 100 Australian independent comic books, and you can get 1 or 20 of them for the flat rate of $9. Now, the other channel is Aussieverse, and if you've never heard of Aussieverse, Aussieverse is a group of people that love comic books, entertainment, and all the things that go in between. They have interviews with creators and people in the community. They do talks about comic books. They do haul videos. They do what they've bought, reviews, just about anything you can find. They've got hundreds of videos all over Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Now, the most important thing you can do to keep these things going is to like and subscribe anywhere you can find them. And the more likes and subscribes we get, we go further up the algorithm and all that, all that computery stuff that I don't really understand, but I just look at it like it's a tree. It just grows. So the more likes and subscriptions is like more water. So it just gets bigger and bigger, and it gets better and better, and helps produce all of these shows and all of the things that we're doing for you, and brings creators like the, well, I'm going to just throw it out there and say pretty much Australian legend right now this evening, Mr. Darren Close, who the stars have aligned this evening. Darren and I have been trying to get together on a Chinwag for a while, but it turns out that February the 27th provides a lot of alignment. It is Darren's birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir. It is the release of his new Killeroo book, which is out on Kickstarter right now. The address will pop up in a tick if you haven't gone and pledged for that. Jump on board that thing. There it is right now, 4horsemen.killeroo.com for any of you that are listening. Now, 4 is the numeral 4, not the word 4. And we've also got, old man Rufus is hitting post office boxes and homes and everything. Man, you're doing the behind the scenes work, running the campaign of the Greener Pastures issue 8 Kickstarter campaign, which is a huge success. And I'm gonna say, or suggest even, that this week's been pretty damn good for you, mate. How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad.
That's the way. How's your birthday today? You get lots of things?
No, not many presents. Had a lot of great people posting on Facebook wishing me happy birthday, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's lovely, man. Super Marcy, I'm here to annoy Darren. Mate, that is no worries. You can annoy Darren all you like. Who else we got? Yuri Matsu. Let's hear about the Roo. We've got Peter Lane. Happy birthday, Darren. Woohoo. Everyone, just Gary Challoner, looking forward to this Chinwag. Hello, sir. Everyone, Ronan the Accuser, g'day. We do enjoy comments on the show and try to interact as much as we can. KJB pulling up a chair for tonight's old Chinwag. Welcome back, mate. And the show is fluid. So, hello, Dave. We talk about lots of things, everything, and I'd tell you that it's all about who, what, where, when, why, and how, but really we just get to who and then it's off and running. So we'll see how we go. Rob O'Connor. G'day, buddy. And I love that new book of yours, Rob. It's good stuff, man. It's lovely. Darren, happy birthday from Facebook user Let us know who you are, Facebook user. Happy birthday, Daz. Darren, you're getting a lot of love here, brother. Look at this. Jackie, Chinwag, and happy birthday, Darren. Half an hour of this. Well, look at this. Happy birthday, Darren, mate. Look at you go, Danjo May. Happy birthday, Darren. Keep them rolling. Hey, share the love. That's what Chinwag's all about. Love. Spedsy. G'day, mate. Happy birthday, Daz. All right. Oh, here's another one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's exactly right, Omnibo. That is the most important thing anyone can do. Now, on with the festivities. Oh, get your face around it, he reckons. Good on you, mate. Darren, we're going to start off hard and fast, mate. Hard and fast. All right?
Okay.
Who?
Sorry.
Who? Who?
I don't. Sorry, I don't understand.
You don't understand? Well, who?
Are you asking?
I'm asking you who. Who are you? Who is Darren Close, the papa of Killeroo? Okay. The existential things that make you up as a man, you know, however you would like to answer the question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a comic publisher, graphic designer. I'm very old, which is why I've been around so long. And yeah, just been making primarily Killeroo comics for the last 25 years or so.
Mm.
That and working as a graphic designer. I've helped a few people run Kickstarter campaigns and just generally been around, I guess, in terms of the Australian comic scene. I try to support as many people as I can, and if I see one who's particularly talented, I try and grab hold of them and get them to work on a Killeroo book.
Yeah. So what was your first, like, did you start with Killeroo or were you dabbling with other stuff before then?
I went to high school with Damien Shanahan, who did Pizza Man and anthology comics back in the 90s.
Yep.
And I was kind of riding his coattails. I was watching what he and his brother used to self-publish, and it gave me a focus for. I was always into art, but I didn't really have like a focus for it. But seeing what they were doing, I created my own characters, and the first one was actually an alien character called Eclipse.
Yep.
And I put together a little mini comic for that, and Damien actually took it with him to, I think it was OzCon 95 or something like that in Sydney when he was launching his anthology series. And I think it was just like 100 photocopied A5 books that I did on the photocopier at Dad's work. And I sort of honed my skills since then, and until probably around 2001, which is when I first published the first Killeroo book. And that came about from...
Is that the one?
Book one.
Yeah.
Yep. That came about essentially from a website that I created called Oz Comics.
Yep.
And this is all pre-social media. So it was mainly just a message board, but that message board became kind of a nice place for Australian creators to sort of catch up and share what they were working on, and showing pictures that they'd drawn and so forth. And I saw what everyone else was doing, and I thought, well, maybe I can make a comic book, and reached out to a few creators who were like John Sommerreaver and Danny McGillick, Evan Jacobson, and Jason Paulos. And basically said, look, I've got this kangaroo character that I created back at uni, but I'd never actually done anything with him. And I basically gave those artists carte blanche. So sort of like, if you like the idea of drawing a story with this guy, just and I'll publish it. And that's essentially what the end result. So it was just a nice convergence of meeting other creators and putting it all together into a comic book.
Yeah, right. I like the fact you did start from the ground up if you started with mini comics, because there's a beauty to mini comics, having that like that real do-it-yourself. You're not relying on anyone else to help you. You just get in and like pull the sleeves back, mate, and I want to get this done and put it out there. I'm actually a fan of mini comics, man. I love seeing people do that. There's a lot of great artists out there. With now, hello Don, how are you, buddy? With the let's go back to happy birthday, you bald-headed fart. Facebook user. That sounds like a Daniel Best sort of a comment. I could be wrong there, but I don't. But yeah, it might be. We'll find out later. Put your name to it, Facebook user. Let's go back to 2001 when you did bring out this comic book, and you went from minis. You've set up your forum page, which went for a long time. I want to we'll focus on that because and we'll come into, because maybe you can clear some stuff up for me too, because after years of I suppose pulverizing my body and brain through to varying things over the years, as people know about, I can't really remember the exact details of how we got into contact back in the day. So hopefully we'll be able to work that out, and there might be some revelations there. But with that community, did you find at the time, was obviously back in the dial-up days, and would have been a little bit harder to get around, and I suppose you didn't have Facebook at that point, so it would have been how did you reach these people? Was it just going through your comic book collection and just seeing names and reaching out to the seeing say Cyclone and seeing an email and sending one off to bring them in, or anything?
It's stretching my brain to go back that far myself, but I suspect it was probably just people that I emailed before, and I probably just said, look, I've built this website, it's got a message board, we can talk there. So I think I was using, it might have been ICQ, which was a very early app back those days for like a messenger chat. So I'd be talking to people on that and also forwarding them to the website. And I think the original Oz Comics site did pretty well in search engines. So I think people who typed in Australian comics, that would come up as number one, and it just sort of built, people would just show up, so kind of organic.
No, because I remember you used to have a drawing Daniel Best. That old message board was the true Wild West of Aussie comics. Hello, Daniel. I came a little bit later. I wasn't part of that message board and stuff, but I did used to see the weekly drawing competition that you used to put on Turner, and man, that went for a long time. There was well over 100 entries into that. Yeah,
I think that was actually on Facebook. The Oz Comics website had finished by then, and I'd sort of re-established the brand as a Facebook page, and just created, to put up every week. I would just say, okay, this week we're drawing Spider-Man, and people would send in entries, and I'd post them all in a gallery, and there were no prizes or anything. It was just, let's build a community again on Facebook, and I think it almost went to about 250 weeks worth of entries. They're all still there on the Facebook page if you go to Oz Comics.
Right.
In the photo albums, there's hundreds of photo albums full of just people submitted art. It was a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, you would have seen some good ones come through, hey? I imagine back then, first time, and people that have gone on for still to this day.
Well, again, it was to be perfectly honest, it was a nice little marketing machine for me, because I would see people sending in this artwork, and if I thought it was particularly talented artwork, I would just go, all right, I'm gonna contact that guy and see if I can get him to do a Killeroo story, and that guy and that girl, and just I kind of cherry picked, to be perfectly honest. If I saw something I liked, then I even did a few Killeroo. It was a bit self-serving, but I would do the occasional Australian comics is the subject for drawing this week, or there might have been a Killeroo one. So instead of drawing Spider-Man or Deadpool, everyone was drawing Killeroo instead. So it was probably it was worked out well.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. Well, hey, you may as well. Like, I mean, you would have. Comic books are a double-edged sword, aren't they? Like I suppose we're all relatively introverted people. Like we like to sit at home and do our thing, in the comforts of our own environment. But in order to get out there into the world, you have to take chances and use the resources that you got, man. So I mean, like using those resources and finding talent, and like providing a place for fellow like-minded people to meet and greet and show off their wares and their talents and skills. I think it's a beautiful thing. That's why I'm such a big. I love community, man. That's why I'm a huge advocate of like what comics is doing. I guess you were the forefather, really, to be honest with you, with all of that sort of thing. And you did give people the opportunity to come forward. I didn't pick this up in the day. I actually randomly came across this at my work maybe about 6 months ago, man. And boxes of comic books come through, and I'm lucky enough that the boss is always like, I don't know if I've told this story on Chinwag, but I'll let you know. Basically, when boxes of comics come through the pawn shop I work at, my boss lets me go through them, and I take what I want, and I do commissions of Warhammer for him. He loves Warhammer, so that's our little deal. And this was in one of the boxes, and I was like, "Get out of here!" I got to check this out, man. And it's man, that has to be, I would say, a very iconic Ben Templesmith cover. Like that's anyone that's been around for a while would have seen that like a lot.
I was very lucky to get in touch with Ben for that one early on. Yep. That's pre Hellspawn, pre 30 Days of Night. He went off to have a great career, but I managed to get him just before then, and he did that great cover. So I'm very
no, it's beautiful, man. It's really nice. And there's even like, God, man, if anyone's got it, there's sketchbooks from John Somariva with, like early Killeroo drawings and stuff like that. Like it really, and you can see the character. Obviously, you were saying before about you were giving them carte blanche, like to, here's my character, have a shot at it. Yeah. The different varieties of Rufus coming through here, man. Like, did you yourself have the original image in your mind? Like, had you already drawn like Rufus and handed them, like the layout of this is what my boy looks like, or were these dudes like giving you back like their versions?
It was a bit of both. I had a sort of a torso up idea of what he looked like. I'd done several sketches of like the anthropomorphic, like which parts were human, which parts were more kangaroo-like, like the neck and the tail and the feet and that sort of thing. But generally, I didn't with those first two books, I didn't really restrain them too much. Like, it was pretty much, let's see what they come up with. And when I developed the character into something a bit more definitive, I would basically cherry picked. Oh, I like how Jason Paulos drew him like that. And I liked how the feet that this artist did, and I basically, assembled who the character would be from an ongoing basis. And from that point, I had model sheets drawn up, and so anyone who does work for me, I have a whole stack of resources and model sheets to give them, so that they know how to draw the character definitively.
Yeah. I like the fact that you allowed those dudes to, I guess, dabble with Rufus to begin with, and you could get the best possible version, because we'll get to a little later on, because I want to keep talking about you, but Rufus is not the easiest character to draw. I can tell you, back when I was a long time ago, he's tricky, like there's certain aspects and nuances to the character that you have to get right, or else I guess he just looks like the torso just looks like a man with ears, doesn't it? Like you got to get certain neck shapes right and the size of shoulders and things like that. So he is tricky.
The key point is the ears. Kangaroos have very distinctive ears, and if you don't get it right, he'll either look like a bunny rabbit or a dog, or I'm a bit of an ear Nazi. That's probably Emmanuel Hernays with that comment, because I would constantly, if the artist didn't get the ears right, I would send them back. It's like, no, you're going to have to adapt that. Just basically show, here's a whole bunch of photos of kangaroos and what their ears look like and how they function, because they're kind of there's like swivels on the top of their head, which allows them to rotate, I think about 180 degrees. And lets them sort of twist them. They're very rarely in the same position, like just straight up. There's usually one up and then one off to the side, kind of thing. So
well, I guess that's all their sensory thing, man. Like their radar and stuff.
That's it.
It's I find it funny that this is just me talking now, and the little things that I've observed over the years on Facebook. But anytime anyone sees a kangaroo flexing, or a giant red kangaroo out in the outback that someone's randomly caught, they always, send it to you. Darren, have you seen this? It's Rufus. I got to say, you must have a whole catalogue of the same kangaroo, man. Just different angles. It's like he's in a Playboy or something. That dude, yeah. But pretty handy references though, because some of those kangaroos are pretty big and scary dudes.
There was one particular kangaroo who was called Roger. He lived in a sanctuary in Alice Springs, and he was the focus of a TV show. I think it was on ABC, and then I think it went to BBC. It was called Kangaroo Dundee, because there's a guy he basically bought a few acres of bushland. He's fenced it all off, and whenever a truck hits a kangaroo or a car or something like that, and there's a little baby Joey in the pocket, they send him to him. So he's filled basically his land with all these kangaroos, whole mobs of kangaroos that he's hand reared, And this particular one, Roger, he was kind of the alpha male of the pack for a while there, and he became probably an international sensation. If you look up big red kangaroo, generally it's a photo of this particular kangaroo, Roger, because he went through that TV show. He became quite famous, and he's pretty much. I've got so many photos of him. He's probably the main reference that I use when I'm drawing, because he's big, he's muscled, and he's got a particular not all kangaroos look alike. Red kangaroos are very different from eastern grey kangaroos, which are different from wallabies and so forth. So I always use the red kangaroo as the model for people who want to draw Killeroo.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough too, because it's couldn't imagine Killeroo being like a wallaby. It's not, because Rufus is an intimidating looking character on the page, but he has from reading your books and stuff, there's a sensitivity to him, like it's not all, like just brawn and stuff. There's been nice stories of seeing his softer side, you know what I mean? And I think that comes through when it's properly done, I can't think of the story off the top of my head, but there was one in one of the gang wars stories that I really liked that had a very sensitive side to him and things. Everyone out there should go and check out Gang Wars. That's a big anthology of stuff. Now, mate, with taking me back actually to your Facebook thing, the one that caught my eye with all the drawings and the weekly challenge you did, and because I don't know if you know this, other people who watch the show might, but there's two things in like the film, comic, and book world that I'm obsessed with, and that is Dune, and the other one is The Crow. And I saw you had part of the competition one day on Facebook, and I remember The Crow was the first one that I came across. I don't ever think I've contributed to that. Actually, I don't even think I've ever drawn The Crow. How weird is that? Come to think about it, I don't know. But that's when it came to my attention, and once the OzComX, like message boards and that side of the community was there, like you would have been feeling motivated and seeing other people's artwork come through. And you're 47, I'm 46, so we're the same age, essentially a couple of months between us. I would assume that was it you that got into comics first, or did your dad collect them, your mum collected them, a brother, a sister, an uncle, or an aunt? Like who got you into that like vibe of collecting?
I think initially when I was a little kid, my dad had a whole bunch of Uncle Scrooge comic books, like Donald Duck comics that he had as a kid. Like they were all, he hadn't kept them in bags or anything, so they were all ratty and kind of falling apart, but I really dug reading those comics. I ended up, my dad gave me those comics at one point, and I know Dylan Naylor is a massive Carl Barks fan, and a lot of it was all Carl Barks. So I actually gave all of those comics to him because no one's going to value them more than he will. But I think the first superhero comic that I got into, I think I was down in Rosebud visiting my grandmother, and I went into a newsagent, and for whatever reason I picked up a comic book off the newsstand, and I think it was Batman 429, which I think is the last chapter of the Death of Robin.
Yep.
Quite a famous book. It had a Mike Mignola cover, and Jim Aparo did the interiors, and it was basically Batman and Superman teaming up against the Joker. I used to watch the Batman TV series, and I loved the Superman movie, and I think that comic brought all of those things together into a printed book. From that point on, I was pretty much a Marvel fanboy. But I did the you're old enough to remember when newsagents used to have comic books, a lot of comic books in them, which was when I was in high school. And I grew up in country Victoria, so the only access that I had to comic books was through the newsagents.
Yep.
And I would go down there and I'd buy like a whole stack of Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. I was really into Spider-Man for a while. I very quickly got into the artists side of things, and I became, I think Todd McFarlane was the first artist that I really hooked onto.
Yep.
I think Damien Shanahan might have shown me a copy of his Spider-Man books, and then it became my mission to track down all the McFarlane issues. That led me into Eric Larson, and I followed both of those creators to Image when they were doing Spawn and Savage Dragon.
Yep.
And it was a fantastic time in comics, that early 90s. Just the best comics that I think Marvel ever made, probably DC as well. And there was just such an energy about comics, and if you were around at that time, it contagious.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's you've got a similar track of what you collected to what I was getting, because my dad was a huge Amazing Spider-Man character fan. So, God, I had Web of Spider-Mans, Marvel Team-Ups, Spectacular Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, any Spider-Man, every annual you could imagine. It was insane how many Spider-Man comics there were back in that day. And, like I was pummeled with your Ron Friends, your John Romita Jr. Dad collected them as a kid, so I grew up with Ditko and all that sort of stuff. And oh man, and then it was just insane. And Dad loved the Avengers, and look, people, don't throw stones at your screen, you'll break it. You can write letters of disapproval to comics, email it somewhere if you don't like what I'm going to say. I've never been a big Avengers fan. Dad was the Avengers man. He was a big Marvel dude, and then when I started getting my own comics, he would give me money, I immediately hooked in. I don't know why. I gravitated towards G.I. Joe issue 11. I think was the first comic book from memory that I ever bought, and just bought straight into that. And man, had a huge thing for Norm Brayfogel's version of Batman. To me, that is the quintessential Batman. I would love to see that Batman in a movie. That dude could draw, still one of the great influences. But then when you came out of Ron Friends, and then you got straight, and then McFarlane just turned up because he was doing the Hulk and stuff too, which was okay. It was pretty good. The Hulk's pretty good. But then when he hit Spider-Man, there was something like, whoa, okay, this dude's humming, And that was mind blowing. So I'm totally with you on that. I remember sitting there wow, look at this dude, he had legs over here, and there was just lots of action in the panels happening, highly influential. Larson came along. I know you're a massive fan. I've seen you post your love for the Savage Dragon. You've got nearly every issue with that, or you do have every issue?
I do. I stopped buying a lot of other comics, but I never stopped buying Savage Dragon. So I have the complete run of 264 issues.
Yeah. What do you like so much about the Savage Dragon? I only ask because it's very rare to come across someone that's collected such a huge run of one series. What is it that tickles your fancy, man?
There's quite a few things. I've always liked his art, and his art has really evolved over that time. He was very McFarlane-esque to start with, but he's more of a Jack Kirby kind of style now.
Yeah.
So that I've enjoyed sort of the evolution of his art style, but also all of his characters age in real time. So the character of Savage Dragon is now dead, and the book is his son. It's his son and his adventures. So
gotcha.
Every year in our time is a year in the book. So when you look at 260 issues, that's many, many years, because I think Larson stated a few times that something that always bothered him about Spider-Man is he never ages.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's generally around 20 to 30 years old, and he doesn't get any older. And, obviously there's reasons for that. Marvel wants to keep the character pure and so when people pick up an issue of Spider-Man, they're not going to get lost on where they're at, that kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I think Larson kind of just said, I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to do my thing, and the character will age in real time. He kills off, I think he must have created somewhere between 300 and 500 characters through the run of Dragon. And half of them are dead. You'll read an issue and it's bang, he's gone. It's just the unpredictability of what you're going to get with that book is something that's always always attracted me and still attracts me now.
Yeah, no, that's cool. He seems to be an edgy sort of dude. You know, like I don't tend to like follow a lot of like posts and stuff. I'm not really on social medias heaps. I pop on and see things if they pop up and it's interesting. I read it, but I'll say one thing since he's been around, like that I've known him, he's definitely had an opinion. He seems a very authentic person, you know, like you know, just sticks to his guns and stuff like that. And from what I understand and about his creating, and you know, obviously your enthusiasm for it as well, you know, like there is, I guess, an infectious vibe to someone just doing their thing, man. You know, like, and he just does his thing, you know, like that's how it seems to me. It's like all this other stuff goes on around him. Occasionally he like pokes it, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, like has his piece, but then just disappears and keeps drawing and and creating. And I like that. And he's got an unusual style.
And I really like that he's just started releasing hardcover collections of Savage Dragon, which he hadn't done up until a few years back.
Yeah.
So I think Bo from Aussieverse was talking about it. You know, he's never read Savage Dragon. So with these hardcovers, I think a whole new audience of people are going to find this book. And if you read those first 2 or 3 hardcovers, you're going to get hooked, because I did.
Yeah.
And you're just going to keep reading. So that's really cool. The first hardcover, I think there's like, you mentioned, like there's a John Sommeriver sketchbook in that Killeroo book. The first hardcover volume of Savage Dragon has 50 pages of sketches.
That's beautiful.
He goes through and, you know, this is what I was thinking with this, and this, I tried this for a cover, it didn't work, and then I went for this. Like, for a process junkie like me, like that's just gold. I absolutely love it.
Well, you would have, well, as we said, we're the same age, and like before a lot of those things became available on the internet, the only way to get any of that process stuff was to actually buy trade paperbacks, which was super expensive as a kid, you know what I mean? And you might get lucky to get, I don't know, maybe 10 pages at the back of pencils. And I remember particularly one in particular that had a huge impact on me, because I saw penciler and I saw inker when I was younger. You know, most of the time 2 different names, and it didn't really, I guess I just didn't perceive at that stage what a penciler brings and what an inker can bring, good or bad, you know, like to either side, you know. And oh man, it must have been in the mid-90s. Like I was just drawing, man. You know, I didn't know anything about pens and pens. I'd just pick up a pencil or a Bic biro and scribble and, you know, draw away textures, whatever. And then I got lucky and I had some money, and they brought, like, Leigh was, you know, like the big thing at the time. And and I picked up an issue of Namor, and it was unusual, you know. That was about the time that you'd sort of been through your steady, you know, like block, panel of comic books, and then old Jay comes in, and he sort of came around from memory about the time Bisley was sort of really humming with his, like, you know, bits and bobs, and that caught me. It was something new. And then he did that massive Inhumans run that brought the Inhumans back into popularity with Marvel. And I got the trade paperback, and I loved it. And then at the back of it, I opened it up, and there were like pages of his pencils. And that was like full on a revelation to me at that time. I was like, oh, this is what a penciler does. And that, what I'm looking at, is what an inker adds to it, and that. And it was like those moments, man. Like now you can just jump on the internet and you can just see, like, oh, that's what pencils of this page from like 60 years ago look like, and this is what an inker does. And but yeah, no, it was tricky to find that sort of stuff, man, back when we were younger, eh? Trade paperbacks weren't really a massive thing either at that stage. Because I know you're a McFarlane fan, because I've seen that, and you've spoken about that a lot. when he came out as Spider-Man, because I am too, right? Regardless of people are, for that age where you're a sponge, man, and you're soaking up, good stuff.
Yeah.
When he left Spider-Man, there was all that conjecture, and I'm not talking about the Amazing Spider-Man. I'm talking about he left Spider-Man, because there was some good stuff on that. Like, he was doing Ghost Rider and all that, and then the whole Juggernaut thing came, and then Buggier Image happens. What were your feelings when Spawn came out? Because a lot of people wouldn't realise that Spawn was pretty edgy too at that particular point in time.
Yeah, I was a massive Spawn fan at the time. I got caught up in the wave. I bought that issue. I bought Spawn from issues 1 to about 100.
Yep.
And I think issue 100 was when Greg Capullo left the book.
Yep.
And I kept buying for a couple of issues after that, but then I kind of gave up and didn't collect it anymore. But yeah, I used to be a huge Spawn fan. Todd's art, Greg Capullo's art, like, it was some really magic stuff in there.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I agree. They were good times, eh? Now, with now, I want to talk about your artwork, because
Yep.
When did you start drawing, mate? Did you start drawing when you fell in love with comic books, or was that just something you did as a little kid? Like you just found comfortable with the pen and paper?
I think my grandmother had a story that she would tell. I think I must have been about 5, and I'd had a small set of Derwent pencils, because they'd figured out that I really liked to draw. And she was trying to get involved in it and said, "Oh, I like that. I like that purple you're using." I said, "This is not purple. This is magenta." And she told that story to everyone who would listen to it. But so I was really like drawing, I guess, from a young age.
Yeah.
But it wasn't till probably high school that I focused it onto comic book artwork. I used to draw animals and leopards and dolphins and a bit of painting and that sort of thing. But I didn't really have a focus until I got into seeing McFarlane, and particularly seeing Damien Shanahan making his comics. And he would give me, he'd photocopy some of his pencils and he'd give them to me to colour in. I was really quite enamoured with what he was doing. And then I started, drawing my own stuff. So, yeah, I guess probably from about 95 onwards that's where I was mainly drawing comics.
Yeah, because and so that's as you were saying earlier, is about the time that Eclipse, your first character, was created. Yeah. Have you ever done anything with Eclipse, or you just moved away from him and went on to Killeroo?
Yeah, I didn't really. Between I created that and I made that Eclipse mini comic, I think that would have been about 93, 94.
Yeah.
And I just did that comic and that was it. And I stopped drawing comics so much because then I went to uni and I was more focused on graphic design.
Yeah.
Because I'd figured out, okay, if I want to be an artist and I want to have a job, there's not too many jobs for artists. So graphic design was kind of the nearest best thing, where you're doing creative stuff. So I sort of went into that. And it was when I was at uni, there was a magazine, it was La Trobe University magazine, that had this, someone had drawn, I think it was called Rat Race. It was like a cartoon strip that they'd published in it. And it was fairly amateurish. And I guess that's the first time where I got a little bit cocky and I thought, I reckon I could probably do something a bit better than this. And it was at that point that I created the idea of a kangaroo that could fight back. I think I've told the story before, but I think at the time there was some news articles about someone had shot a kangaroo I've lost you. Someone had shot a kangaroo with an arrow, so they found this kangaroo injured with an arrow sticking out of its neck.
Yep.
It might have been students that had done it.
Yep.
And I thought, well, what if you fought a kangaroo that fought back? And I created this one page, which was pretty derivative. It had, I think I referenced aliens and like the movie Aliens. And basically it just had a kangaroo with a machine gun that shot up a bunch of students because it was, defending itself. And he had a little sidekick on his shoulder, which was Psycho Possum. And when I think back of it, it was more amateurish than the strip that I was unhappy with. But they published it on the back cover of this university magazine, and so I created the IP, but I didn't really do much with it until when I created the Oz Comics page and met with all those other artists, sort of dusted off that character and started publishing comics with him.
Yeah. Okay, so you said that was 93. You said was the first, like, I'm going to go with that's a published Killeroo because so 93, 95-ish. Man, you're nearly 30 years with that character. Like, have you celebrated a 30th yet? Where was I for that?
No, I don't think I have.
Because I don't remember you doing it. You should do it, man. You should do it. Everyone else is celebrating it. It's like, like celebrating their 40s and 30s and all that sort of jive. And man, come on. Back when I was like getting into it in the 2000s, I'll tell you what I remember a Killeroo, dude. In the 90s, like, and this is what my anecdote for you. In the 90s and stuff, I collected a lot of 2000 AD, a lot of black and white Australian comic books. I was pretty bored with a lot of Marvel at that stage. I found a little bit derivative, same sort of stuff, and DC. Like it was cool. Image was out. There was a lot of comics. Like there's a lot of stuff, and I don't know. I was just looking for different things. Not that there's anything wrong with anyone collecting all of those things. It's all cool. The world has if everyone in the world was the same, it'd be a dull place. I was just looking for something different. And I came across 2000 AD and a lot of black and white Australian comic books and stuff. And for some reason, I disappeared out of comics for a while, just didn't collect them. I was just into other things, music and, just life, And then in the mid-2000s, when I was like, 2004, 2005, and I'd been drawing my own stuff and, like still drawing and started coming back into comic books. It was really weird, man, to me. I don't exactly know where I first came across Killeroo. It was sort of like subliminally in my head, if you know what I mean, that I recognized Killeroo, even to the point, dude, that I thought, I didn't realize it was Australian, right? Like I just knew, like, Killeroo, like, why is this in my mind? Where have I seen it before? And then I started cottoning on to seeing more Killeroo stuff come through. And at that stage, to me, I couldn't find, and no disrespect to other Australian creators that are out there. I mean, distribution channels have changed. The internet wasn't as friendly back then. So many things have happened, man. You know what I mean? Like to bring us to where we are now. I just couldn't seem to come across things other than like Cyclone Quarterly was one that I came across at that stage too. I think was around that stage, and like I was really enjoying that and those quirky things, stories and stuff. They really gravitated to me, but it almost feels as though for a period, man, that you were the only dude that was like sticking in there, man. You know what I mean? Like, and keeping like that Australian, like, I guess, community and drive and original IP, like pushing. So now that we've worked out that's like a 30th anniversary, man, like nice one, because it's like congratulations on that. That's a big effort, because I mean I'm only new, I've drawn since I was a little boy, but I'm only 4 years old in the Australian comic community, and I've already seen a lot of people come and go, and I've already seen a lot of hearts broken, and people not get out of it what they wanted. Perhaps you would have seen a lot more, and you're still here, bud. So that's a big credit to you with Killeroo, and you're plugging away.
It's either that or I'm too stupid to.
Well, there's two of us here that might be silly in that regard, mate. But I would say that, to be quite frank, that is passion, man. That is something that you've wanted to do. You're proud of your IP. You're proud of your work and your product, and and the other thing is too, because I want to before we move into comic books, and while we're talking about this as well, since I've been, and I spoke to you about at the start of the show that I wanted to have a yarn to you about this, and thankfully you're open to it, but you do know you can throw out the safety word anytime you like. So, and for anyone that hasn't been on the show before, as a safety word, in case I ramble on about things that no one wants to talk about, okay? You can learn that when you come on the show. It's a show thing. So, I'm just trying to think, with your drawing and your artwork, because you have been doing it a long, long time, and I'm only now becoming. Look, I'll be honest with you. When I was younger, I was very ego-driven, and obviously, if everyone knows what an ego is good in small pieces. Everyone does need one to a certain extent, but when it gets out of control, it can be insanely devastating for not just yourself, but those around you. It stops you from being self-aware. It stops you from, I guess, being kind to people and seeing and understanding what other people are going through. So over the course of the last couple of years, when I have been on the socials and stuff like that, looking and reading about people's stuff, I often come across, there's a lot of groups, if anyone doesn't know, watching on Facebook and varying things, and there's a Sydney comic book group, there's Melbourne groups, there's lots of little pockets of creators and people and stuff. And I generally come across, pretty regularly, topics of conversation that everyone has each week. And there's little things like, paraphrasing, what's holding you back? Why, things, what makes you feel uncomfortable about putting your work out there and things. And it seems to be, a fairly common theme that, again, to narrow it down, resonates around a lack of confidence, a lack of. You've got to be very. How can I articulate this? There's something personal when you do your artwork. You're putting yourself there, with any art, if you're doing it authentically and and it's part of you. For me, creativity has saved my life. So I'm very nervous, to be honest with you, about putting a lot of my stuff out. But the one thing I found really nice about you, Darren, is your vulnerability on your posts regularly, particularly through the Old Man Rufus campaign. With being honest, life, things don't go as planned, man. No one controls anything except our own responses to stuff. But you're very open with your communication and discussion with people. And one of the things that I do recall you were talking about is your nervousness towards doing your short story that was in the back of that. And the reason I bring this up with you is because I was hoping to get your, I guess, to discuss with you the fact that you've been doing it for 30 years now, man. To me, you've got to, success is graded differently with different people, but I believe that you have an extremely successful IP in Australian comic books. You're a well-known figure. 30 years is not something just to, shake a stick at, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's some work and trials and tribulations and some kicks, and you've got back up and gone into that. How, I guess, for younger people that are trying to do these things that you're doing, it's you still feel that way. Why is that so? I ask you purely because of your extensive CV you've got to the youngsters, because I think the youngsters, and I'm included in this, feel sometimes like they are alone in feeling that way. But I want to sort of push across a positive message from you that, it's okay to feel that way. What are your thoughts on the vulnerability and the nervousness about your artwork, man?
Well, I've just sent through a link to Sizzle if he wants to put it up. But essentially, I covered a lot of this book I created called Struggle, which is a short autobiographical story, which is free for people to read. You can click I don't know if you can do clickable links, but if it's up there long enough, they might be able to type it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, I've always struggled with levels of confidence in my own drawing ability, and a lot of that comes from, when you're working with, I've worked with some amazing artists and some very talented creators, and when you see, the kind of stuff that they can do, and then I'm trying to do it myself, and I'm not measuring up to that, it's hard not to feel discouraged to a degree, because comparison is the worst thing, because you're either looking at Marvel books or someone else's books, and you just go, well, that's better than what I can do. And there's a certain point where, when you're putting yourself out there, there is that vulnerability of, I worked so hard on this, and it's still not as good as what other people can do. Should I even publish this? Should I just leave it and not worry about it? And it's tough. It's really tough. You were talking about ego before. I think ego is probably important to be able to push through that self-doubt and that lack of confidence, and just try to I never discourage anyone from making their own comics and putting it out there. Like, it's never been easier with digital printing and Facebook and the internet the way it is. It's never been easier to get your story out there, even if you're just posting it on a Facebook page or on a website or something like that. And you're going to get better, but it's going to take time. And what I've found, I came up against this kind of a fear of failure mixed with a fear of success, where I'm kind of on the threshold of, I feel like my art is starting to get good. And I've spent, decades in a place where I've always thought my art isn't good enough. And as sadistic as it sounds, that's a comfort thing. Like, I'm comfortable with my art being, I've become comfortable in not being good enough, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a comfort blanket that goes with that, like Linus in the Snoopy cartoons. But I still struggle with it. The Old Man Rufus book, you will have read. The biggest thing that's holding this book back is my drawing a story for it. Ryan finished his story for the main book a year ago. But I've got an 8-page backup story, that it's like pulling teeth. I can't tell you why.
Yep.
Apart from what I've already said in terms of, I still don't think I'm good enough. And when you compound that with people have been waiting a year, 2 years for this book, the pressure of that just builds up and up and up. Like it becomes almost a physical being, like pushing you down.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to break that.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with it, but I'm pushing through it. And the way I'm probably, this backup story will be less conventional comics and probably more illustrated story. And that's probably going to be the way that I can get through it.
Yeah.
So rather than having to worry too much about the storytelling in panel to panel to panel, I can just pick scenes and illustrate those and have accompanying text of, what's happening in the story running alongside it. And that's probably the way that I'm going to go. I'm still working on it now.
Yeah.
But that will at least enable me to get it done, get 8 pages of art finished. And when I get that finished, it's going to be such a relief off my shoulders. And the big lesson that I learned is, if you're going to commit to doing something that's going to make you uncomfortable, don't do it to anyone else's deadline. Don't launch a Kickstarter that is dependent on you having finished that story. If you're going to do that, finish the story, then launch the Kickstarter.
Yep.
So it's ready to print, and you're off you go.
Yep.
Because I'm so used to working with other artists who submit the art. I've got it there. I letter it. I get the colorist working on it, and I can put it all together. And it looks great. But when it comes to my own art, I run into this brick wall every time.
Yep.
And it's not easy, but you'll only get better over time, and you just have to keep, force yourself to sit at the table, even if it's only for 5 minutes, or even have when I'm doing my graphic design work, I'll have like a sketchbook on the desk, and when I'm trying to work out a design problem, I might start scribbling, and it's just that physical act of putting pen to paper that you're going to get more and more comfortable with it. And it's I probably sound like a broken record, but it's still something I struggle with. But I'm getting there. And for anyone out there that feels anxiety about their own artwork or creating, and being afraid of what other people might think, I'm 47. I've been doing this for 30 years, and that, for me, that has never gone away. So you either make friends with it, or you just stop, because the anxiety will just kill you in the end. So if you want to really pursue it, go for it. Nothing's stopping you except yourself. And that was the main story from that struggle book that I mentioned. I guess maybe that can be added to the YouTube link, like the description or something like that, so people can click it and be able to read it. I don't really have an easy URL for people to read, so if we can put that link in there, that'd be good. So,
we can organise that. I think that answers it very succinctly. And there's the link just down there for anyone that's watching. Jump on that, because I've had the pleasure of reading that. Oddly enough, Darren, years ago was going through a bit of a phase where I felt exactly the same way, and came across that book, and that was one of those moments where I thought, wow, there's other people that feel like this, like out there as well. And I think, well said, And thank you. I'm very grateful for you answering that question and being yourself and giving the best answer to you, for yourself as you could there, because I think that's a battle that a lot of people go through and they don't speak about it. And I think what you just did there hopefully will enable some younger creators, some people who are going through the same thing, to realize they're not alone. So, like it's pretty amazing the things you can learn in a community, that, people that have been doing a comic book for 30 years still feel the same way as the person that's finding their feet and their style, and is this good and is this not, I obviously, I mean, I've been drawing my whole life, but I don't have the comic book publishing career that you do. But I would probably just say to those people that feel like that, just keep going, be true to yourself, find your voice, and only compete with yourself, don't worry. For me, I don't stress about what anyone else is doing, be proud of what you're doing. Darren, I also, man, I think you're a good artist, man, a fine artist. Your homage you just did for your new Killeroo book was a good drawing, excellent drawing. There was one you did, man, maybe a month ago, a Killeroo, and I hadn't seen one of your drawings for a while, and I came across that on a Facebook feed, and I actually, whoa, man, fire 'em, So I hope you do, man. As someone who's we've known each other, like this is the first time I guess we've met and talked, but we've known of each other for a long time. Yeah. I certainly hope that you do put more artwork out there, man, because I enjoy what you put out there, and I know there's a lot of other people that do. So feel confident that like the work you do is appreciated, man. Because you've given a lot of people, no problem, mate, my pleasure. Because there's a lot of people that are had a leg up from that and your creativity. So on veering off to that, I'm hoping now Darren and I, strangely, we've met once on a Friday night drink and draw, but Friday night drink and draws are a bit tricky to meet, and talk to people and stuff. So this is the first time I've actually spoken one-on-one with Darren, other than a few, a little bit of Facebook stuff. Now I'm hoping we might be able to step back in time here and clear up some of my vagueness of my memory. 2011, I think, was 2010, 2011. I cannot remember. You put an ad out. I think there used to be, from memory, there used to be an Australian comic book newsletter that used to go to comic book shops, like a little A4 double-sided thing. And and I came across you and your email looking for people that were interested in drawing Killeroo at the time. And this is stemming back to earlier in the conversation, Killeroo was subliminally in my mind already. And I was a bit like, okay, and that's where I sort of started coming into the Oz comics and things like that. And Facebook was up and running and humming. And Gang Wars, beautiful thing too, man, the symmetry of things. I had Rob O'Connor on a couple of weeks ago, and you're great mates with Rob, and you two met from his stories through the same forum. And turns out that Rob's in the same bloody issue as what we're going to talk about as what I was. How weird's that, that was cool. Yeah, I chanced my arm one day, nervous as I was. Yeah, I'll give it a go. Send off some stuff to you, and you were very cool enough to go like, yeah, man, I'll send you a script. Now, that was the first script that I'd ever come across. I can't remember the gentleman's name who the script is. So
Kevin was his name.
That's him. Is he still going? Is he still around the place?
I haven't kept up in with him. I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah.
I'm just to refresh my own memory. Like you see my eyes darting off.
Yeah.
I've pulled up Gang Wars #1 just to refresh my memory because it's as you said, going back a ways.
Yeah. So, how did you gather all those like? You had a lot of people come from all over Australia, and that was through the community of Oz Comics and stuff like that brought all that. That's what you were talking about before when you were like, I like that. Would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? Because that was a big battle, man. That was 5 issues. Like they were big comic books too. You know what I mean? This is what I mean. Like you've started off as well to give people you've started off the nuts and bolts, like the mini comics. Then you've gone to that. And like this would have been back in the days before, I guess, minimum runs and that. You would have had to have done quite a few.
That one was printed on plate. Like that was before digital. So that cost a fortune. It was printed off plates, which they don't really do now unless it's a really big print job. But that book cost more than I think. I'm trying to think of the actual numbers, but compared to what you can print now, you can print 20 copies at a Office Works or Comic Books on Demand or wherever you want, and the printer it's all digital. It just goes straight in. The file goes in, the book comes out. But back then they actually had to print off printing plates. And it cost a fortune. So it's changed a lot. But in terms of your question, I think it was either people that I'd known through the message boards or had maintained contact with. It might have been the Facebook group as well. But essentially, I had assembled with Ryan Wilton a series of story outlines that we had in mind because he and Daniel Lawson created the Scars comic book, which essentially is the origin story of Killeroo. But at the end of that, sets up Gang Wars, where he basically becomes the leader of a motorbike gang. And they have adventures out in the outback from that point on. So we put together probably 1 paragraph story outlines and found a bunch of writers that I knew or who'd submitted to me before and said, well, do you want to try fleshing out one of these outlines into a script? So then we got, 20, 30 scripts together. And then similarly, I asked, there was like a sample page that I got the artist to do. So everyone was drawing the same page.
Yep.
So we could see, the storytelling ability, the style of artwork, that sort of thing. And then based on, there was a few people who didn't make the cut, but most did because I already knew what their capabilities were beforehand. It was just a trial.
Yep.
So I'd get those scripts that were fleshed out from the paragraph, and then I'd find artists that I thought would particularly suit that story. And the one that Kevin wrote, I thought would particularly suit your style. Which, I mean, from memory, Killeroo doesn't really appear in it very often. It was more of a, I think the idea was that the government wanted a plant inside this gang to kind of report back on what was going on. So he was kind of the mole in the group.
Yeah.
So towards the end of the story is when he actually becomes introduced to Killeroo's gang, and through circumstances he becomes part of that group, and that then followed on to several other stories where he got exposed as a mole in the group and was betraying them to the government and that sort of thing. So it was an important story that you drew because it set a lot of that up. for future stories. So yeah, it's in the first book, book one. Both yours and Rob O'Connor's stories are in there.
Yeah. No, well, I keep all the comic books that I do framed, man. Like the first one.
I think you've
Stuff and ones that I've got, and yours is it's right there next to Battle for Bustle.
Sorry, I think it says the Leigh's video seems to have frozen for me. I don't know if it's frozen for you.
All right, how's that? Better?
That's better.
All right.
Sorry, we're talking about.
Sorry, man. Yeah, am I still here? We're all good?
Yeah.
Just double checking with you. Yep. All right. Yeah, no, I keep them all framed, man, just as a, I'm proud of them and stuff. I remember at the time, because you had a few books under your belt and everything like that, so you knew what you were doing. And at that stage, I'd been drawing a lot of Battle for Bustle and sort of had created that at that stage. And I hadn't had anything to do with comic books except what I was drawing. So like when you got a crew around you, and this is why sometimes growing up in rural areas, you need a community and you need mentors and stuff, because when you've got your mates and you're sitting around having beer and, oh, mate, look at that, you're the man, so your ego gets fed by all that sort of drive, And obviously at that stage, I was really happy that, you'd given me the go ahead to do this comic book and things. And you were the first, person that had given me a taste of what, the owner of the IP wants, And I remember, this is where we were going to, with the ears earlier, you know what I mean? I'd send you off a drawer and you're like, no, mate, no, ears got to be this way. Or no, he can't do that. He can't do this. And because, and I'm being honest with you here, man, because, it's just truth is the way. At the time, I was like, what the hell, man? I just couldn't get it. And you created, now at the time, because being younger and obviously egocentric, I was very different back then. I had a different attitude towards it, but now that I've obviously had a little bit more of a perception change, and I've seen more of what the community and the industry is about and how important the creation is to the creator. And really, I mean, it's for, I would be put it in my shoes. If I gave Hibiki Gecko, one of my characters, to someone and said, hey, draw away, I'd be very much like you. I'd be very much in hindsight, no, she doesn't look like that. Do this, do that. The swords are a particular way and things. So you taught me a hell of a lot. And when I went away from it, because it was a long process, and again, there's no disrespect to you. I'm not showing you any disrespect at all. I'm showing you complete respect here, man, because you gave me a kick up the bum that I needed, until I brought Battle for Bustle out. And it was a hard slog, that story, but a lot of lessons learned, invaluable, and to get you to, teach me along the way and stuff, and I guess it made me realize, okay, I want to go, I want to put my time seeing your passion and what you wanted and your directives and things. I realized at that stage, looking back on Battle for Bustle, that I needed to, I guess, incorporate your attitude to the creation of my own thing, So I went back to the drawing board with B for B. And it wasn't until like Reverie and that period where I damaged my back and I had all that artwork that I brought Battle for Bustle out. But yeah, Killeroo was the one that taught me. It basically taught me, like, dude, you are an egghead. You don't know what you're doing. This dude's just, giving you a good slap. You didn't like it, but you know what? The dude was right. So pull your head in and and learn, and that's where I started really, really understanding, because, comics and all facets of them, from what you've been saying, to minis, to production, to printing and things like that. It's not just sitting there drawing. There's so many nuances to it and levels that you've got to learn to, that if you're not prepared for it, it can blow you out of the water, man. And really quickly. Because
the thing that sorry.
No, you're right, man. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I recalled a story about my mum, because my mum used to be an artist when she was growing up, but she never really pursued it. But whatever I do, and this is kind of a general thing, but when I draw something, my mum thinks it's wonderful. And there are times where, she used to draw really good horses. That was her passion. And I think I got a commission where I needed to draw a horse. So I wanted some constructive criticism from my mum on how to get the anatomy and the look of the horse right. But she couldn't do it. She wouldn't give me constructive criticism. She couldn't. She's looking through rose-colored glasses. Whatever I do, she thinks is wonderful. And I think in terms of what you were saying about your mates, if you're just around your friends, it's an echo chamber. They don't want to say anything that's going to hurt you or disparage you from doing what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a lesson that if you want to be a comic artist, you need to grow a thick skin and be prepared to learn from people who are, they have experience in putting these books together. I know we were talking about Eric Larson before. Yeah. He is notoriously brutal in his portfolio reviews. You bring a portfolio of stuff to Eric and he doesn't think it's up to snuff, he'll tell you it's shit. He probably won't tell you it's shit in that many words, but he won't pull punches. It's like, this isn't up to the standard. If you I can tell you a few of the things that you need to work on, but you're not going to get work with this. And it's kind of a hard lesson, but it needs to be learned, because it's one thing to learn from your peers or even your artistic peers, but they might be really good at painting. They're not really good at comic books. You need to hear constructive feedback from comic book people who do this for a living, because they know all of the pitfalls and the tricks and the kind of things that just aren't going to fly. If your storytelling's not up to snuff, it's very, very clear. So it's very tricky. There's a point where you need to be encouraged as an artist to grow to a certain level, but to take that next step to build your art to the next level, you've got to learn some hard truths, and you've got to learn them from people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to your echo chamber of, does this look good? You're not going to get an honest answer. They can't give you an honest answer.
Yeah.
So, along the lines of what you were saying, I certainly didn't. I didn't intend to offend anyone, or I just had a particular vision for what I wanted for the book. And a creator, and I didn't take any offense, by the way. It's just part of the parcel. If I'm commissioning someone work for hire to do a job, even if it's not very well paid job, even if it's just this project needs to be done,
Yep.
And if you can't do it, I've got to find someone else to do it.
Yep.
So until you get to that level where you understand and you have an understanding between the artist and the writer or the creator, it's a good learning skill, like you said.
Yeah. No, man, I wouldn't have. Like it provided me, as I said to you, like it provided me with a, whoa, dude, like talking to myself here. I remember thinking like, wow, man, okay, check. Like reel yourself in. Take what he said. And then I started, and then I knew, because and then I thought, no, I can do this. I want to do it. Like I was head into B for B, and then as I was doing B for B, I just had like lessons that you were telling me, like this has got to be this and that and that, like, and I was trying to, like incorporate that sort of stuff into the comic book as well, and and then like the next phase, like then I sort of disappeared for a couple of years, man. Like I guess I was doing lots of things were happening. I mean, like recovering alcoholic and drug addict, like you've got lots of things going on in your life, mate, you know what I mean? But drawing was there, and I was trying to learn and do things, and then I was very lucky that I saw a series of synchronicities, really. Hey, one morning I was really hungover. I destroyed my back at work, and hungover as hell one morning. And I was on the phone and on Facebook. And when I was a really young boy, my dad had a copy. He bought it in Canberra of a Reverie comic, an anthology back in the early 80s and stuff. Yep. I always remembered Reverie. And Dad had a saying at that stage. We used to, like, I'm just telling you a story here. It'll all add up in a tick. I'm just what I do. It's fluid. And he used to take me down to mud flats and stuff near his house, and we used to catch skippers and mud skippers and little crabs and put them in ice cream containers and make little worlds and stuff like that. And they were like awesome times. And one of the things that he said to me randomly one day, and I don't know why, I was only about maybe 6 or 7 when he said this, but some things just stick in your head. He always said, look at the world with reverie. And I don't know why, I just always remember that being there. So this day I was like, I'd come out of you a couple of years previous. I'd had like issues, a battle for bustle ready to go. I was nervous. I didn't know what was happening. I'd sort of developed my own thing by that point because I hadn't read a lot of comics and doing my own thing. And then I'd done me back. I didn't know where I was going to go. Like, I couldn't do what I was doing, like I was on the tail end of recognizing that, like I've got these addiction issues. There was like a real, I guess, a semi-partial, the first portion of a little awakening happening of, self-realization of, like, man, come on, you got your shit together. And I saw this Reverie thing turn up, and I immediately contacted Gary Della, and he said, like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So I sent him off. He said a couple of pages, and I sent him, I think, like 4 issues or something. And he was like, oh, okay. And then the really weird part is it brings it back to you. He didn't agree initially to do Battle for Bustle. I had to wait a week or two, like before he, like, yeah, mate, we'll do it. And the go-ahead to do it was you, because he'd reached out to you and he said, like, man, this dude did a Killeroo story, and what's his go? And apparently you had said at the time, give him a go, mate. And that's how Battle for Bustle came into the world. So in its strange way, I thank you for that. And here we are this evening on your birthday, and the launch and everything going off. So the universe works in funny ways, man. And I've been very lucky in hindsight to well, I have had luck, man, and I'm grateful for it. I can tell you, mate. Did you realise? Like, here's just something I was thinking about today too. You had this made me chuckle today when I thought about it. So, 3 of my mates and I did a comic book last year called Ring Around the Rosie, and you know that the 3 dudes that drew Ring Around the Rosie have all done or doing Killeroo like work. Like, there's another thing, you know, like, because Ben, who's watching the show, is you know, working on something with you. And you've had Ryan, a great mate, bloody Vella, who did Old Man Rufus, which that's cool. I don't know. He probably don't get him into trouble, but I'm going to tell you, I was looking at artwork and stuff before that came out, because, you know, he was penciling, and we always share stuff, man. We keep it on the quiet, obviously, him and me just sharing things and talking. Like, see, this is the thing about community too. You meet people, man, you know, like, and you just sort of meet and, oh, do that, do this, you know, like, oh, you could do better than that, or I can do better than this, and you just all work together and help, and, you know, like, and feel good about it, and you learn, man. That's what it's all about, learning. And that's the lovely part of it. And but I just chuckled today. I thought, like, 3 Ring Around the Rosie dudes have all done Killeroo. So, you know, it's one of those lovely things. Now, man, I want to let's get into your new Killeroo book, which launched today, because that's a big. I mean, it's the week of Darren Close. You know, like, when you think about it, man, like, or today's the day of Darren Close, like 4horsemen.killeroo.com. Now you got Old Man Rufus is hitting, as we said, the post office, you know, like boxes, and it's in people's hands. There's photos of it turning up. It looks delightfully good. You've got your new comic I'll get to, and you've got the Greener Pastures campaign, because, I mean, like, and this is the other credit to you, man. You're not just a creator and have a Killeroo IP. You're doing lettering. You're working on colors. You know, like, you're doing a whole heap of stuff. You're doing, you know, Kickstarter campaigns with people and stuff like that too. You know, and pushing and promoting and things like that. Like, you know, publishing. I mean, like, your hands are full, man. Like, I mean, that's a big, like, you're carrying a load there, man. You know, the other beautiful thing that I must say that caught me is someone that I don't think I'd be going too far as to say has been very important in our lives in general, is Mr. Gary Challoner. And, you know, in terms of mentoring, friendship, you know, probably given us both a kick up the bum at certain times that we've needed, you know, like, to keep going. But, man, Killeroo in Adventure Illustrated. That's some pretty wicked stuff. How long were you gestating on that for a while? Because that's a great comic book, man.
Gary really knocked that out of the park. That's one of my favourite stories of all time. The colours, the way that he drew the character, the story beats. You know, I had a very small part in that. He would just simply give me a few selected pages to ink, and inking Gary Challoner's pencils is kind of a privilege all of itself. Because Gary reached out to me. There's a pin-up of his in that book 1. Now, he reached out to me very early and kind of took me under his wing and helped me put that book together and gave me advice on lettering and all manner of things. So I owe a lot of my success to Gary, and I couldn't be. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, way back in 2001. But yeah, that story in Adventure Illustrated is. I think it's fantastic. I hope more people are able to see it. I know that I don't think it's available in too many stores, which is a shame. But really, if people can track down a copy, I actually got a variant cover version of that book printed so that I can sell it at conventions. It's a really beautiful story, and I hope more people get to see it.
I agree with you, man. Yeah, because he he's one of those dudes that just works quietly in the background. You know what I mean? Like he's not out there. Like he's there. He's just doing his gentle thing, man. He's there, and he's just like helping you along and giving you advice where you need it. And he's given me some great advice, and no doubt you as well. But man, goddamn, you'd be chuffed to have him drawing your character, because I've never had the privilege of inking anything of his, but was it scary?
It was a little bit intimidating, but his pencils are also not difficult to ink. He's got such a confident line, and all the shapes and everything. So there's really a certain amount where you're just tracing, a lot of it. But particularly with Rufus in particular, I've drawn him that many times, and I really enjoy inking other people who draw him, because it becomes kind of a merging of their style and my style. And there's certain tics and things that I draw about the character that others don't, and I get to add a little bit of me into that picture when I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's not a difficult penciler to ink over, that's for sure.
Yeah. Did you attack it with pens, or did you go brush, Indian ink? How did you look at it when you got it? What was your first thoughts?
I'm a big fine liner guy. I use a lot of fine liners, uni pins. But I also like some Kuretake brush pens.
Yeah.
They have a nice solid line, and I think those are probably my two main weapons, is the fine liners and the brush pen.
Yeah, right. Nice. I just always like to ask, because as someone that draws, I always like to find out what other like artist weapons of choices are, man. Because just for fun, and see what other people are doing. But all right, so let's get back to your Kickstarter. Launched today on your birthday. You and Stuart Black. Now, talk to me about the how this all came together, and because it's your sequel, isn't it, to your From Hell and Back? So
Yeah. So this was the first Kickstarter book that I ever did with Stuart. This was back in 2019. I've known Stuart for years. We actually live pretty close by to each other. And I've always dug his style, and he's so prolific. You want to talk about output. This guy's done 40 comics in the last 10, 15 years. It's just he just pumps them out. Yeah. He's terrible at marketing, because I don't think too many people know an awful lot about his books. But he just keeps making them and printing them and sending them out by mail order and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got such a definitive style. And we just hit it off. I think we met at one of the Melbourne comic meets and talked about if we did a crossover with his characters and my character, and what that would look like. And we just went back and forth with ideas. And before I knew it, this is an 80-page book. This is probably the thickest book that I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's all Stuart. Stuart would do, these kind of pages he would do in a day. He just pumps it out, fully coloured. He's a mad guy. And that Kickstarter did really well for a first effort. I learned a lot of lessons on that Kickstarter, because we had so many unlocked stretch goals. So people who ordered just the comic they got a bonus sketchbook. They got a set of trading cards. They got a fridge magnet. They got a set of 6 prints. They got stickers. Because I was inexperienced in Kickstarter. As soon as it went up another $1,000 in funds, I would add something else.
Yeah.
And it ended up costing us a fortune. Like, we made a good amount, but it was all taken up by the printing costs of all these extra things.
Yeah.
So people who backed that Kickstarter got a real bargain, because they might have only bought the comic, but they got like 15 other things that came with it.
They got a swag of stuff, mate.
They did. And we just had over time we thought, oh, do we want to do a follow-up to it? And most of last year was Stuart just quietly working on this book. I had less to do with this particular one than the previous one.
Yep.
Because we sort of figured out, each other's boundaries and kind of what he wanted to do and what I wanted to do, and the things that he could and couldn't do with Killeroo, that sort of thing. And he'd send through panels that had Killeroo on them, and I'd ink the Killeroo, and we just sort of went back and forth. And he's done another 80-page story, and he just have a very particular style, writing style, art style, and it came up really nice. Like, this book is literally ready to print. So unlike the lesson I learned with Old Man Rufus was, don't kickstart something until you're ready to print it.
I was going to ask you. I've seen other people run into a few troubles with Kickstarters. I mean, you're not the only one. There's other people out there that have done it. I mean, it's just all learning, because Kickstarter is essentially a new way. Like we were talking about mini comics, the plates, the digital printing, and that. Kickstarter is a new distribution thing. What was your main lesson? Was it that, like, have the comic ready to rock and roll, kickstart it, print it, get it out ASAP?
Well, I think I've lost a fair bit of trust with my Kickstarter backers because Old Man Rufus has taken so long.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, how much that weighs on me, on my shoulder, and how it drives my anxiety and so forth. So I said to Stuart, like, if we're going to do this as a Kickstarter, then it needs to be finished before we start.
Yeah.
And Stuart's done all of that. So the book is ready to... The only thing that needs to be drawn is there's like a couple of cameo levels. So if people want to be drawn into the comic, they can do that. So there's a bunch of empty panels where he hasn't finished, where he's going to put in the likenesses of people who might back that level. But apart from that, the book's ready to print.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I looked through your campaign today because obviously you're coming on today, and I thought, like, I'm going to check it out, see what's happening. I saw the little cameo things, and I like that idea of, like little, not personal touch, man. Like to.
It's a fun thing that some people, it's pretty cool. They like comics. They might not be able to make their own comics, but the idea of seeing themselves in a comic is a novelty that that some people particularly enjoy. And I know Stuart has fun drawing them, and I think he has even more fun killing them in the book. Like, it's probably Killeroo might rip you limb from limb, and that's your cameo appearance in this book. So,
oh, mate, like that like that'd be a good. I could live with that, like if my character met like their demise by being pulled apart limb by Rufus, man. But like, just to what you were saying there is, you might have like lost like some confidence with your backers and that from the Old Man Rufus thing. Like, I mean, mate, from what my sights on things were, you're communicating with people. You were going through some stuff from what you had a fair battle, man, and like just in life in general at that stage, man. You know, you were going through a few like health issues, mental health issues, and just things were happening. And that does happen in life, mate. But the way I see it is, it's the way I see it is you've fulfilled it, you've done it, like you've finished it, and it's getting out there now, mate. You learn your lessons, like because you did it the Marvel way, didn't you? I think I read somewhere you didn't have a script, you were writing you had a synopsis, you wrote a script to the artwork and things, and
So when I get to the stage that I normally really enjoy lettering a book. Like that's part of the production process that I really enjoy. But when I got to start lettering this book and I don't have a script, it becomes a case of I'm scripting this as I letter it.
Yeah.
And the same kind of mind games and so forth go. So I'd write a caption and then I'd go, no, that doesn't read well. I'm going to do that again. And then I'd write another caption, and I didn't like that either. And I'd just write it again and write it again. And then I'd write some dialogue, and that doesn't sound right. Like the amount of second guessing that came in because I had done it that way. Yeah, I'll never do it again that way because it's counterproductive. The lettering took me 6 months. When it should have taken me 6 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you find with the counterproductivity of it as well, and having to you would have obviously come across some loopholes that I might need that panel or this panel changed. It would have inadvertently, in a sort of circular way, like affected some of the art, or like with the storytelling to make it a bit clearer.
With this one, Ryan really killed himself to get the pages done. So I really didn't want to request any alterations to the page. There were a few things where, I wanted things to bleed to the edge and he hadn't drawn that. So, the colorist would add a bit of extra stuff in there so that it would bleed to the edge. But no, I didn't really send anything for Ryan to redraw. It was more a case of I had to write to better match what he'd drawn, rather than the other way around. And that's, if I'd done a proper script, I wouldn't have run into that. I would have seen what he'd drawn, and I would see that it didn't match what I had in mind, and then I could say to him before he's inked it, "Can you do another look at that panel 5? Fix it. It needs a little bit of work. I'd like you to make it look like this." It's when you have the script all sorted and locked in, you don't run into these problems. So, and you touched on the big thing with Kickstarters really is communication. Like you need these people are people who've looked at what you've done and what you've said you're going to do, and they've backed you. They've gone, I like this. I like what this guy's doing. I'm going to give him some money so that he can go and do that. And, as you said, life happens. People, you run into things that you weren't expecting. You make mistakes. But the last thing you want to do is ghost your backers. You want to keep them informed at every stage, even if it's bad news. Even if it's, I'm really running into it with this. I'm going to have to delay the release because it's just not going to get done. You have to do it. And as long as you're honest with those people and you're regular in telling them, okay, this is this month's update, this is what I've done, this is what needs to be done, etc. I think you're going to lose less trust because, like, Old Man Rufus has something like 50 updates of where I've told them where the book's at and what's going to happen. So I'm hoping that those that have lost a little bit of confidence in me can at least see, okay, here's a photo. The books are going out. They're in people's hands. I've seen the digital file. I've read through it. It looks great. I'm just waiting for the book to arrive now. So it's a case of I completely understand if someone backed Old Man Rufus and they don't have their book, and here I am putting my hand out again, give me more money so I can make this other book. I can completely understand why someone would be hesitant to say, well, I haven't got the other book yet. How am I going to pay you to get this one done when I still haven't got that one done? It's completely understandable.
Yep.
So people, I'm expecting and I'm seeing in the numbers that there's a fair bit of hesitation from quite a few people. And I'm just going to have to wear that. That's my fault. I've caused that. And I need to rebuild trust with my backers. And being able to deliver this book like about 2 months after the Kickstarter ends, I think will go a long way to help rebuild that trust. So, you backed it. You waited 2 months, 2 years for Old Man Rufus. For this one, you wait 2 months, and here it is. It's in your hand. And I'm trying to time it so that I end up printing this book and the remaining Old Man Rufus book at the same time. So I'll get them both in the printer at the same time, and I'll fulfill both of them at the same time.
Yep. Well, I mean, mate, I think first thing you've done there, through my recovery, what I'm learning is truth.
Yes.
And the truth is the most important thing, As hard as it is to tell some people that you're wrong, or you have to accept the fact that, you did make a mistake or things didn't go the way they planned, like truth is always the best thing. I would also suggest that you've done that, man. Respect to that. For anyone that's watching and things like that, I have complete respect for anyone that does that. More respect for you now. The other thing I would say to people is you do have 30 years credit under your belt. Sometimes I think people only look a little way back instead of, like looking a long way back. And, for the varying circumstances that look really transpired and reared their head in your life last year, I think it's probably, these things happen, it's unfortunate, but it happens. But you're doing the best you can right now, man. You're communicating, you're being honest, you're working hard, you back out, like on the socials and the forums, you're doing your thing, like you're facing your own demons with your artwork. You're doing that publicly, man, which I admire. In my own way, I'm trying to do that for, like with my own thing, because people might sit in the background, Darren, because you're always going to get people that, are in the back of the, the stand, look at this, like you're never going to outrun them. But I was asked the other day by someone I won't, mention, why do you always talk about alcoholism and drug abuse? And it's like, the reason I am so loud and talk about it so like as authentically as I can is to allow space for the people that wear it in silence and have, don't have the courage to recognize that they may too also have a problem or things going on, So I'm quite prepared to get out there and express, hey, this is what I am. Yeah, man, I screwed up, I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm not going to stop, championing it. And I greatly respect the fact that you've also done that with yourself tonight, mate. You know what I mean? Like, just don't worry about those dudes in the background, man, or the people that are gonna, you're doing what you got to do, man. And
I think the big thing of what you were talking about there is, a lot of people think they're alone in their struggles. That they're dealing with alcoholism or drug problems, and they think, my friends, my family, none of them can relate to what I'm doing. And, I'm trying to stop it. I'm trying to get better. But, I'm not seeing anyone being sympathetic and understanding. And I think that's one of the most important things is, people do struggle with a lot of addictions and things like that. And that's part of life, You're not alone, and you're not a bad person because you're going through that, Some things didn't work out your way, and it's led to you being where you're at. But doesn't mean you can't change things. And
That's
you're
right, mate.
a great example of you can pick yourself up and you can make something of yourself, or if you continue down that path, you'll probably end up dead in a gutter. And that's your choice, and whatever that choice is, you need to make peace with it and understand that there are things you can do and things that are out of your control. You just have to make the best of it.
That's exactly right, mate. And it's not just addiction as well. It's also like Comex is a champion for mental health and stuff like that, anxieties, all those things, man. Like I guess there are mountains that every individual has to climb, mate. You know what I mean? But I am 100% for people attempting to climb that mountain and do it the best they can. And, I believe that the best way forward is through positivity. And that's just how, I guess, my recovery has what it's shown me. I also see it in other people that are struggling. It's just one step forward, positivity. I see you tonight, positive, coming out of the blocks, like there's a lot of good things, man. I think things happen for reasons, Darren. Lessons, sometimes you get a bite on the bum, man, and it's all about perspective and things too, man. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you just need a little every now and then just to bring you back, I have, like, speaking of positivity and things like that, the other thing that I will say to you, Darren, is over the years as well, and it does stem back to everything we've spoken about tonight and all, you being involved in it at that time where I genuinely, apart from Mr. Challoner, and, the Phantom, a handful of others that I can recall, there was a time when Australian comic books weren't looking real healthy, mate, back in the, like the mid 2000s and into the 10 and 11 and 12 and that. And a handful of gentlemen and creators, not just gentlemen, ladies and creators, like through passion and positivity for the medium, kept it pushing. You believed in yourselves and you went and you plugged away and you stuck it out there and you did your wares and you had your community and you were trying to create something and stuff. And a lot of you have never stopped, man. And I look at that as possibly being the most important. Now that I look at the history of Australian comics and I'm seeing it more and I'm a student of it and I'm asking questions and I'm meeting people, to me, that is probably the most important period of Australian comics that you guys were involved in there. Because without you guys, I don't think there would be Australian comic books at the moment. I think it would have just completely dried up, man, and there wouldn't be much happening. There'd be a few trickling through here and there, but there wouldn't be people that have, given people like myself, Rob O'Connor a go. There's not people that, have been, like Jason Paulos is another one that's been plugging away. Dylan Naylor, I don't want to forget names, but there is a group that, really stuck it to, tried. It's a beautiful period. I think what you've done is pretty amazing, man. And I've watched over the years as you've copped a little bit of flack from people. I think you stuck to your guns. I would think that from getting to know you for the last couple of hours now and talking to you very honestly and getting very honest answers and seeing where you're at, I would say continue to stick to your guns, man. Don't give up on Killeroo. I would say take your place, man. Don't listen to those people because you know what? They might be putting flack on you, but they're putting flack on everyone else. And you know what, Darren? At the end of the day, bud, you are still here. You are still bringing out comic books, man. You get dusted, you pick yourself back up. You've been doing it for 30 years. And, you know, for all those people that are back in my day, back in this, where you at? You know, where you at? You're not doing, you know, bring us 30 years of comic books, man. And, you know, there you are. So
thank you.
I would, man, much respect to you. Much love for giving me a go 10, 12 years ago and giving me a kick up the bum to, you know, give me a make me better, you know, like as an artist and give me something to aim for and stuff, and the weird little synchronicities that we all have. But with for anyone that's out there, suss out the new Killeroo book. Go and get any Killeroo books you can. You've got a back catalogue that's on that Kickstarter as well, don't you, mate? You've got a whole heap of things that is there. What are some of the rewards you can get on that Kickstarter? You know, tiers or whatever they call them, mate, that people can look for.
Yeah. Now we mentioned the cameo tier where, you know, people can get drawn into the book. There's 3 different covers to this book, which if you just order one copy, you'll be able to pick which cover you like the most, and that's the one you'll get. There's some completionists that are like, I want all 3 covers, so there's a reward level for that. And there's also, you know, I don't know that this new book is as reader friendly as the previous one. Like it introduces a lot of characters in the first one, and we don't get the kind of introduction that they probably need in this book. So I think you can still follow it, but it would help if you have the original book and are able to read that first. And I've got stacks of copies of that. So you can get a bundle where you get the original book, the sequel, and you also get a not safe for work sketchbook that we did as part of the first Kickstarter. So you can get 3 books and have the full story, and that's 100, nearly 200 pages of story, I'd say, combined. All full colour, all perfect bound books. So, yeah.
That's an amazing amount of work, like 200 pages. Huge.
Yeah. So there's those options. There's digital options. You know, I know times are tough and not everyone can afford to buy books and then have them shipped. You know, the shipping is always a killer with comics in Australia. So there's several digital levels that you can back it at, and it'll be just an email that you get. Then you can download the PDFs and read them on your screen. You know, so there's plenty of options there. There's a high-end level reward which goes into a bit of my self-publishing experience and my Kickstarter experience. So you can get 2 90-minute video sessions like this one.
Yep.
Where if you've got a comic, I'll have a look at it for you. I'll give you some feedback, some critiques, things that I think might work out well. I know a bunch of printers that would do a good job to print this, depending on how many copies you want. Or also, if you want to launch a Kickstarter and you're not really sure how to do that, I've done nearly a dozen Kickstarters now, so I've become a bit of an expert, and I have there's a lot of tips and tricks to it that I can impart. So it's so that reward level, it's about $800, which is a lot of money. But you get 3 hours of my time where I will give you constructive feedback. I'll help you do the lettering. I'll help you wherever I can to help you make your project work. That's what you get.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful. Now you're forgetting one that I saw today, which I thought was pretty cool too. And we were talking about your artwork today.
Oh yeah.
You've got that original piece up as well. How big is that, man?
It's A3, so it's
beautiful.
And that one is a homage to a Jim Lee Wolverine piece that I loved back in the 90s.
On the back of issue 50.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. I know.
A really iconic shot, and I basically just took that and I light boxed it and made it into Killeroo instead of Wolverine. So full respect to Jim Leigh for what he did, but I just wanted to make a Killeroo version of that pose. So it came up pretty well.
Man. It turned out really well.
Well, I use a colouring team in India called B Studio.
Yeah.
They've coloured several of my books. They coloured the Scars book. They've coloured a couple of gang war stories that I'm going to collect into trade paperbacks. And they also coloured that. They coloured Old Man Rufus, and they coloured this cover. So I've got the original A3 art. If you buy that, you'll get that. And I'll also send you a copy of the book with that cover on. So you have the art and then the finished product next to it.
Yeah. Now, just how long's a piece of string? But how long does it take you, like from start to finish, you reckon, round guess to do a piece like that? Then?
If I sat there and did it in one sitting, it'd probably be 6 or 7 hours. But I'm terrible at that. I'll do a bit at a time. So that particular piece has been sitting on my drawing board for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And I every now and then I'd sit down and I'll ink those trees, or I'll finish inking the face, or fill in the rendering on this. I do it in bits and pieces, which is not recommended because it takes you far longer than it would had you just sat there to sit and finish it. But I think I also probably put more work into it than I needed to. So you can see every minute that I spent on that page.
Yeah. Do you find that you just get, when you get the time and you sort of hit that conscious, you're just in the zone, man, you just find yourself just drifting into it? And if you really like a drawing, you sort of don't really want to leave it sometimes, hey?
I think there's an element to that,
yeah. I know. I understand, man, completely, that whole thing. It's like I can spend days on some drawings. It's like I just get lost in the thing, man, But I guess that's part of the meditation, the relaxation, the love, the pure consciousness that goes into the creativity when you're in the zone and stuff like that. That's part of the creative process, man. Which is a lovely, lovely thing, which we both love, and there's lots of other people out there that enjoy it too. And you don't just have to be a writer to be in the creative process. You could be a chef, you could be a swordsman, you could be a gardener. There's lots of different ways, That's right, mate. That is right. Darren, mate, I as we wind down the show, I always like to ask, you're sitting at a convention, what would you say to little Daz that walked up to you at the other side of the table, being where you are now, looking back on you as a young fella? What would your words of advice be, mate, to leading into the world of comics?
I'd say don't take things so seriously. Learn to have a bit more fun and be a bit more casual, and keep things light rather than keeping things bottled up inside. Find friends that you can relate to and talk to. I think therapy is probably a good thing for everyone. I don't think anyone on this planet wouldn't benefit from a bit of therapy. And I'd probably say go and see a doctor so that you don't need to get heart surgery later on. I'd give him the heads up and say, you've got a bum heart. You might want to get someone to look at that sooner rather than later. So that'd be a couple of it.
No, that's fair enough, man. That's fair enough. Mate, I've really enjoyed tonight, man.
Me too.
I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, man. It's just this, the universe brought us together at exactly the right moment. So it's been really cool. I'm glad I got to know you a little, much better. I'm glad for many things. Thank you very much for giving me your time this evening. Thank you very much for giving me your time with 10 pages back in 2011, which kickstarted me, man. So for that, I am ever grateful, and thank you very much.
Thanks,
all right. So for everyone out there, Mr. Darren Close, Paparoo is go and check out his Kickstarter and Stuart Black's Kickstarter right now. That address will pop up in a jiffy for you to go and get, fourhorsemen.killeroo.com. Go and pledge. There's plenty of tiers, as Darren has said. You can get the back catalogue of varying Killeroo comic books. I would highly recommend it. Very privileged to be part of that as my first foray into Australian comic books. Realistically, it is a 30-year comic book. There's a lot of legendary comic books that celebrated their anniversaries over the last couple of years, and I believe that Killeroo should very rightly be up there with them. So go and check it out if you haven't already seen it. Now, look, I just want to remind everyone, the show is sponsored by the Comic Shop, which is over 100 Australian independent comic books, and it's all available for a flat rate of $9. You can buy one comic, you can buy as many as you like. You don't have to buy mine, you can buy anyone's. Help an artist and a creator or a creative team, anyone get out there into the world. This is the beauty of community. There's a lot of things you can learn. It's wonderful to be a part of. As you can see, things with Chinwag keep coming together in the strangest synchronized ways of late, and it's very beautiful. I find that everything sort of is becoming a symbiote circle. Next week on the show, it's a pre-recorded show next week. I made the mistake last year of not letting people know that when I was doing pre-recordings. That's because the artist next week is from overseas in Los Angeles. His name is Matthew Schofield. Now, you may not have heard of Matthew Schofield, but you do know of Matthew Schofield if you know anything about the world of animation. I'm going to sort of leave you with that little hint there, but that was a really nice conversation, and you'll be surprised with Matthew and his comic book Steamroller Man that's coming out. Look, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much for this evening and being with Chinwag again. We'll be back next week. Well, you'll see a past version of me in the future in your present. So all that time, space, and interface stuff, and all those dimensions we live in, how weird is the world? But it is what it is. So thank you again, Darren. Good on you, bud. And I wish you every success, man, and all the best with the Kickstarter. Community is unity, and Chinwag is always made with love. So don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.
This show is sponsored by the Comics Shop. Check out comics.cx for all things comics and find out what comics is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.